This aerial shot gives us a great view of the amount of space Mahrez is free to exploit. The one option I feel Mahrez does have here is the square ball across to Sane for an easy tap-in.
Well, there are a number of things that I mentioned during that analysis of Man City, and it was only a 2 or 3 minute analysis of how they played at the first few minutes of their game against West Ham a season or two ago. But I felt that it identified a number of the key aspects of how Man City play under Pep Guardiola. Now, each of these will form a big part of a game model, and it's going to be tricky to take all of the information for each of these principles of play in this one-off webinar. I mean, we do cover them later in our course and in other situations, but I'm going to go through them now. If you have specific questions, please ask them, but also this will be sent to you so you'll be able to take notes and listen again to what I'm saying. Don't worry too much now if it's not all going in straight away. It's a lot of information. Now, obviously, numerical superiority. It's 11 v 11, but the way that Man City move their players and are constantly on the move, they're able to create areas of the pitch where they have at least one more player in the opposition. They always make sure that they do that so that they can retain the ball. They know that if they retain the ball in one particular area, eventually the opposition will come to that area, and that means they must have left another area to go into the space where Man City are retaining the ball. Now, they achieve this by playing wide and deep. They play very, very wide as a team. You'll see the wingers standing right on the touchlines, and you'll see defenders playing quite deep when they're in possession, and forwards and wingers trying to get as high up the pitch as possible to give themselves as much space to be able to move the ball and, importantly, move the opposition. They always progress as a team. By that, I mean that they have short passes to start with. And the reason they have short passes is because if they lose possession, they'll have a number of players around the ball to be able to apply an immediate press. They look to penetrate lines, which is to play in between the different lines of defence, which we highlighted in the video. And if they can't go forward immediately, they look to retain and circulate the ball for that right opportunity. All of these actions together create what is known as a positional superiority. Okay, it's a technical term, but it basically means that they are looking to move, in this instance West Ham, but move the opposition into areas they don't want to be in. Okay, I talked a couple of times in that analysis about them creating a weak side, and it's the weak side for West Ham, but the strong side for Man City. They did that by going down the left-hand side of the pitch more than once. It was 3, 4, 5 times, because they recognised eventually West Ham would go and overcompensate, overload in that area, and that would leave a weak side where you either have a player completely free, in this instance it was Mahrez, or a player in a 1v1 situation where you're happy to then quickly switch that player across. Again, we've already talked about this. If they lose the ball, they look to apply immediate pressure. They attack the weak side, which I've mentioned. And then their counter-attack, once they've won that ball back, when they were out of possession from the goal kick, they went to exploit those spaces quickly. Again, lots of information there. And the analysis that I did took me a long time, and I'm not an expert in game models per se, but this is how I went through my process, and it took a long time. But again, there's the things that we can pick up later. So we've got a break now, and we're going to have a recap. I'll quickly recap, Nicky, and then we'll do the questions. Yep.
Yeah, that's fine, because the questions are coming in a lot of them.
There's a lot of information there, so I think it's a good time to have a break. I think we should definitely have drinks breaks. I forgot to get myself a cold beer, but next time I will. So I just want to recap what my process was, so you're aware of where we've been and what we're going to do next. So my game model started with the question, where a goal scored from. I wanted to know how the successful team scored goals. Just to win, you have to score. I looked at the teams and players that scored a lot of goals, and then I analysed how those teams play. And the example that I've given you is Man City. Now, I haven't just looked at Man City. I'll let you into a secret now. I'm a Manchester United fan, so watching Man City be great is tough. But I do think they're a very good team. But I looked at all sorts of other teams as well. And I looked at teams that don't necessarily play the same way, that decide that they don't want the ball, particularly teams that Jose Mourinho coaches, where he hasn't looked to retain possession. For example, there are other teams in the Premier League, such as Burnley, and years ago Stoke, who didn't play with lots of possession. So it wasn't just the likes of Man City that I analysed.
But I spent time learning to understand the playing principles that those coaches had put into their game models and how they were linked together. And that's what we've just talked about with those boxes on the pitch. How if you play with short passes, the reason for that is so that you can immediately press if you lose, and how all of those other principles are linked together.